everyone, I'm Jen Thomas, Head of Marketing and Memberships at the IAB, and I wanted to welcome you to today's webinar on Connected TV. This is a really exciting one for us, as our Video Council have been working extremely hard on updating the Connected TV white paper, which will be available next week along with the recording of today's session. We first wrote the paper on Connected TV in 2017, and how times have definitely changed. Not only is consumption on the rise, but we're definitely seeing a more engaged consumer, choosing what they want to watch at the time they choose, all on the big screen. This unique positioning of traditional meets digital comes with some exciting possibilities for brands to take advantage of, and that's what we're here to talk about today. We've got a fantastic lineup for you. I will soon pass over to my video co-chairs, Jonathan Munschi and James Young, to talk a little bit more on the CTV paper. Then we will throw to our absolute gun of a research director, Natalie Stanbury, to take you through those consumption habits of CTV. We'll move into a bit more of a robust discussion on planning and buying with Jodi Fraser from Publicis and Clare Tsubono from Lion. And last but certainly not least, we have our IAB CEO, Gai Le Roy, diving deeper into those unique opportunities with Flaminia Sapori from MatterKind and James Bays from the Trade Desk. Lots for you to be updated on a short space of time, so I will let us get started. Q&A will happen at the end, but please keep all your questions coming through as we go on each of the topics. All right, let's dive into the big screen of opportunity, connected television. Over to you, James.
Thanks, Jen. Hi, everyone. James Young. I'm the General Manager at Telaria. Telaria, for those who don't know, we work with all the broadcasters in the Australian market to help monetize their long-form video inventory programmatically. And in that time, we've been doing this for about 3 years, we've seen the BVOD and the connected television space grow significantly. And it's become from an environment where people have been testing the waters as marketers to becoming an absolute critical component of their marketing plan. And it's something that we're really proud of to launch this white paper today. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to the IAB Video Council, who have all contributed to the paper today. It's been an incredible amount of work that's gone into it. And more specifically, I'd love to call out to Jen Thomas for being an absolute linchpin of driving the white paper and bringing it all together. It's been a tough job for her, and thank you, Jen. Really appreciate all your help on that. But John, I'll just pass over to you to wrap it up.
Awesome, thanks everyone. So hi, my name is Jonathan Munschi. I'm heading up digital sales here in Sydney at 7 West Media. And I concur your point, James. Thanks to everyone involved. Definitely CTV for us is a focus at 7. We see up to 65% of all minutes consumed on the big screen in the lounge room. So definitely something that has been a focus and continues to be a focus. So, as Jen pointed out, 3 years ago, we released a first CTV paper, and back then it was really to make everyone cognizant of the growth and the opportunity, but the market was really behind in terms of embracing this opportunity. Back then, we were just celebrating the consumption had tripled in the previous 15 months, but from a relatively small base. The user behavior is now, fully ingrained in a household, and it shows in the latest IAB device and usage report that you can find in the chat right now. We now have 6.3 million Australians consuming internet content on connected TV on a daily basis, from 5.2 million last year at the same period. And 49% of those actually saying they watch mostly or always with others. So when you actually combine this massive reach plus the multi-viewing, the potential reach just cannot longer be ignored. Now, from a market perspective, in the first paper, Sarah James, who's now the MD at Initiatives, said connected TV capitalizes on the engagement of the full screen experience with the advantage of being in control of your content journey when you want to watch. That was true, and it's still true, but it actually now delivers so much more for brands and agencies, and that's exactly the purpose of the paper. So whether you talk about planning, buying, delivery, reporting, or addressability, connected TV has evolved a lot and present new ways to engage audiences at scale and deliver measurable results. There's still some challenges, no doubt, but that's what makes it very interesting and what's going to make the next couple of months absolutely amazing. It's no surprise either that the appetite from the market has really caught up. So CTV now represents 38% of content publishers' revenue, up from 23% in December 2018. So it's literally exploding. So if you've been wondering what the opportunities are and how to make the most of them, you're in the right place at the right time, but also download the paper that's going to come your way very soon. Now I would like to hand over to you, Nat, to talk about the audience consumption. Thank you all.
Thanks so much for the introduction, Jonathan. Today I'm going to show you some data from the IAB's enumeration study that is conducted by Nielsen. This survey runs throughout the year and collects a representative sample of Australians of 3,000 people per quarter aged 14 plus. The data I've got for you today is the latest first quarter this year, January to March. And we certainly are living in a world of multiple digital screens. You can see here nearly on average 7 video-enabled screens per household now. And consumers move between these screens and often multi-screen to satisfy the different needs in our life. You can see here that there are now 6.3 million Australians aged 40 plus, or 30% of the population, watching internet content on a TV screen every day. And this connected TV audience is growing and will continue to grow. We have 9.4 million Australians who can and have at some point viewed internet content on a TV. Over the last year, there are nearly 1.3 million people who viewed CTV content for the first time. So it's 16% growth in that total number who have ever viewed. And CTV viewing is getting more frequent. So with daily audiences growing really strongly there, with a 22% increase to 6.3 million every day. Now, as we know, connected TV viewing is viewing video content delivered via an internet connection on a TV screen. Now, this includes TVs directly connected to the internet, so smart TVs, as well as various hardware devices that allow a standard TV to access and become connected to the internet. So accessing directly on a smart TV is by far the most popular way to access. So we've got 77% of people accessing that way. But there are other ways that still, smaller but significant numbers are accessing the internet on the various TV screens throughout their household. And all of these ways of accessing have increased over the last year. So there has been a 22% increase in people who access via a smart TV, but there's also been a 40% increase in people accessing via a Chromecast and 22% increase in accessing via Apple TV. So I've noticed several reports in the media about TV manufacturers and brands and TV retailers reporting a lift in TV sales through the lockdown period. So while our entertainment options have been limited to the home, consumers have fast-tracked their purchase of new smart TVs. And accessing online video has been a major selling point for TVs. So the internet has massively increased the choice available to Australian TV viewers for both paid and free content. Subscription video on demand, so that's content that you pay a monthly fee to the supplier, such as Netflix, attracts 8.5 million Australians aged 14 plus. There are also 3/4 of all Australians aged 14 plus, or 6.9 million, nearly 7 million, who've accessed internet content on a TV who are accessing free to view content. So this includes broadcast type content from Australia's TV networks, as well as YouTube. So this offers advertisers a substantial opportunity to communicate with Australians viewing on a connected TV. There are also smaller numbers here, but 2 million Australians have paid for a video, so buying a specific, one-off purchase of a video, for example, via Apple TV. And a smaller number, about 1 million Australians who've actually consumed non-video content on their TV. So connected TV offers advertisers a substantial potential opportunity here to reach the 25 to 44-year-old age group. We've actually got 45% of all Australians aged 25 to 44 who are on a connected TV every day. Over half of our daily CTV audience are in that age group. The CTV audience is gender balanced, you can see there, and we have a slight skew to metro audiences. Now, this audience growth has been driven by the 25 to 34s age group. You can see there that while overall we've had a 22% increase in daily viewers, the 25 to 34 age group there increasing a huge 45%. A year ago, our connected TV audience was slightly male skewed. However, the growth in female audiences over the last year has made that profile gender balanced now. And we've also had slightly stronger growth in that metro audience. Looking here at the demographic profile of the various connected TV content types, you can see that the age profile of free and subscription audiences are very similar. So looking at those red and yellow bars there, very similar high audiences in the 25 to 44s age group. The audiences who have actually paid for a one-off video, so buying a specific movie from Apple TV, they are slightly different in audience profile, having an older 35 to 54-year-old skew there. So traditionally, watching TV has always been a shared experience for the household, and watching connected TV is the same. It's an activity mostly done with others. There's about a quarter of viewers who always or mostly watch TV alone, however, and they are more likely to be at the younger or older ages of the spectrum, so under 25 or over 65. So with consumer audiences on the rise, advertisers are following, and we've got an increased investment in CTV. So in total, across all devices, online video advertising expenditure reached $1.6 billion in the calendar year last year and grew 20% year on year. This data subset of content publishers' video expenditure here shows the split across devices, with the share of content publishers' video inventory viewed on a connected TV at 38%, peaking in that last quarter last year at 40%, but up significantly 23% a year ago. So advertisers increasingly looking for opportunities in this CTV audience growth. And on that theme, I'm going to hand over now and introduce you to Clare and Jodi. I'll give those a second. There you go. Over to you, ladies.
Hi.
Hi.
Let's just go straight in, huh?
Yep.
We've been asked to talk a little bit about, how we buy connected TVs and what the pros and cons are. So from a publicist perspective, we buy CTV almost exclusively as television extension, which makes a lot of sense. Obviously, it's on a television. And what we're really looking for is reach on top of television campaigns. And what do you guys look for, Claire, at Lion, when you're looking at CTV?
That's the same for us. We do what we call a screens buy. So we're trying to reach our audience across whatever screens that they are viewing. So a positive for me on connected TV is that it's following where the consumers are, and especially the fact that it's viewing on a big screen, which is a better viewing experience a lot of the time. So that's something that we really enjoy about connected TV. It sits in the mix with all of our other screens. We also like that it's got the opportunity for for personalization and relevant content, and live optimization. We really like that we can do that as well.
And I mean, are you guys currently just using standard television ads to run across CTV? Is it just, or do you have particular creative that you use?
Well, we ideally, when we create content, we go for emotion and aesthetic, and we are really pushing through to our marketers and to our agencies to create TV content that's for the channel. So for example, we certainly don't just run the first 6 seconds of a 30-second ad as a 6-second ad. We make a 6-second ad, and very open to help and advice from networks or promoters of content on what's the best way to create content for this particular channel, because it is viewed differently and it's a different consumer experience. So that is something that I think that's an opportunity within the industry to give to marketers some advice on that.
So you'd be interested in like a research piece coming from the broadcasters specifically around connected televisions and what sort of commercial lengths work the best?
Absolutely, yeah, we would do that, because you know it's a very different user experience to be on connected TV than it is to be on linear TV. Not to be on, to watch, and a creative that's fit for purpose for each channel only will drive our message more strongly.
Absolutely. So we've talked a little bit about the positives. Are there potential, like what do you guys see as the biggest barriers? Like from an agency perspective, obviously we are still stuck in a place where we're really handcuffed by the fact that we cannot measure viewability. And as much as viewability is not an interesting topic for anyone to talk about, when you work on global business, a lot of the time, you're working to $1 for X viewability. And if we can't demonstrate that, then we can't actually put it onto media plans, which is, I know the IAB and the Video Council, we're working really hard to try and figure all of this out, but it is still a barrier, and it's a barrier to additional revenue coming into this channel. What from a marketer's perspective would some of the barriers be?
Well, I mean, that's the first one. When we're getting media budgets signed off, if it doesn't show how many of our consumers, beer drinkers, it's going to reach, then it's really hard to justify. So that is the first question we ask. I know the AANA are working on I'm part of the committee trying to get a, multi-channel reach. But if we can't show that if we can't show that it's extending the reach, then we usually won't support it with advertising dollars. I guess one of our biggest, it's not a barrier because we use it, but something that I think that if it was improved, we'd use more, is the actual consumer experience. Because, Think TV research points to that CTV is a more attentive and lean-in channel. And that makes sense. You're binging, you're choosing, you're not just watching what's scheduled. But I feel as well that the user experience of 6 ads in one break, often being the same ads every break, is something that is, quite frankly, a pretty poor user experience. And that sort of leads to another issue that we have, which is the technical issues, which I know are in the process of being solved. And I do agree with Jonathan that there's been a lot of improvements, but I think there's more to go. Frequency capping, competitive ads running one after another in every ad break. It's anecdotal, but I've spoken to people who will say I binged something, I saw that same ad, every single ad break, it infuriated me. I'll remember that product as something I'll never use again. Now, that's anecdotal, but that is not an experience we want to have for our brands. And these are the things that I think need to be addressed, because it's a huge opportunity to open up another revenue stream if connected TV is treated as a completely separate channel with different challenges but different opportunities, and not an extension of linear.
Yeah, and I mean, I would like to acknowledge that I know that Telaria has done a lot of work on this, and that the experience is definitely better than it was in the early days. And additionally, I think, you know, agencies are partially responsible for some of that with frequency capping. I know the technology has a little way to go, but, you know, we're improving all the time. But yeah, I mean, I think that tends to be a barrier for marketers in a way that it doesn't affect agencies as much.
Yeah, because I mean, for us, what you've got to remember is that in a multi-channel buy, the frequency's already, you know, I instruct a low frequency when we're buying, because I know that my consumer will see us on out of home, on linear TV, hear us on radio, see us on BVOD, social. So I need the frequency to be fairly limited in the first place, because the ultimate consumer experience is going to be a high frequency anyway, because I always do a multi-channel buy, and this is a small channel market. So it's really quite important, because to know that I've set my ads run excessively means it's just not the best cost effectiveness. And that, again, particularly now in this year and the coming years, is really, really important to us.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I mean, all the guys, and I know the guys at the trade desk are doing some work on this as well. You know, it is constantly being upgraded and changed. And I mean, if you think about the experience on CTV even like 4 years ago, it's definitely come in leaps and bounds, but that makes sense that would be a potential barrier. So moving on, so when you do a campaign with CTV, you know, what is your measure of success?
So, well, we you know, we have a screens campaign. We wouldn't do CTV. We haven't ever done CTV just on its own. Broad reach is what we're looking for. So, measure of success is always that our awareness grows. One thing I think I'd say as like to see, you know, what would be perfect in our place, you know, in my mind, is for CTV and BVOD to start to that might be a bit harsh, to recognise that their competitors are other content channels that provide video. So linear TV is not a competitor to CTV. Other streaming services are a competitor. Other places for users to provide content and consume content are competitors. And I just feel that there's a lot of opportunity that could make the user experience much more strong. I would recommend, imagine if Netflix took advertising, which it may do one day. Right now, their user experience is so strong that it would be a channel we'd look at. So take the opportunity to learn from that and provide it. It's just not an extension of something that already exists. Provide it an experience for the consumer that's great and is going to keep them coming back, keep them logged in, keep them giving real data so we can use that data to serve our ads in an addressable way. That would be my my ask to the industry.
Yeah, and I know we talked about this. We've talked about this before, albeit briefly, about, you know, actual addressable targeting and you know, some of the things that, you know, could really help us invest more money into this channel. Do you want to talk a little bit about personalization?
Yeah, so personalization would be great for us because we are an alcohol client. So we have really strict rules, both externally and within Lion, about ensuring that we don't ever serve our ads to people under 18. So for us, it would be awesome if there was a way to ensure that. And I know that there is a lot of information gathered when people log in, and there's a lot. I really admire all the networks who have put in, if you log in, the user gets extra content, because that's a really cool incentive to log in. But if there's only one login per household, then that is the data we've got. So that can mean that we might be serving ads to people who are logged in as a male 40 plus, but the whole family is watching, or only the teen uses it. So having something like the Netflix profiles, which I know that TVNZ has been able to do, so it is doable for a commercial network. That would be something that would really, we would love that. We know that consumers are watching digital TV, which on however they watch it, more and more and more. That's where the viewing is going, and we want to follow that. But there are still some restrictions that are making it a bit more difficult for us, and that's one of the big ones.
Okay, so we've covered the challenges fairly extensively. Thinking about some of the best parts of CTV, you know, like what is it that makes you choose CTV as a channel?
Part of it is the addressability, because even what I just said, that's, you know, something I'd like to go to in the future. The fact that we can, there's a lot of information that the networks can provide us on the audience that's more than demographic, and that's fantastic. The immediacy, so we can, you know, we can have a campaign on and perhaps serve one type of creative to one type of that audience and another to another one. So that's really exciting. The content, I mean, people binge now, people access content the way they want to access it. So it's where everyone's going, and the large screen and the bringing back of the sort of family viewing is fantastic. I stupidly cheaped out and bought a cheap smart TV, so I don't have a lot of the apps that I would like to have, but I know that more and more of them are bringing all the apps all in one, and I think that's just great, because it's awesome to watch, to be able to bring the sort of internet TV experience back into the family room with multiple people.
Yeah. So just to wrap up, what advice would you give to agencies and brands looking to use CTV?
If you could do some work on showing us what works the best way creatively for your channel, that would be amazing. And sort out the same ads appearing in every ad break. I know there's some technological issues with frequency capping. I do understand that, but there has to be a way that you don't watch a half-an-hour show and see the same 6 ads every single time, every 7 minutes. Make the user experience great, because then that's where the users will go, and our marketing budgets will follow where our consumers are looking.
I really thought you were going to say make the user experience great again. Yeah, and look, you know, we've been using CTV at Publicis for as long as it's been around, and we've always had a sort of agreement with the networks to put as much CTV in as possible, even when no one was really buying it because of certain challenges. You know, it's a great format. It's the large screen. It works for us really well, as everyone would know who's ever listened to me talk about anything. Publicis has a really heavy FMCG portfolio, and you know, this is the perfect way for us to extend reach, and we've always had really good experiences with it. You know, where I guess the message from this conversation is that Claire and I are really hoping that, you know, we can make this experience even better for consumers and easier for us to buy, more addressable, and then, you know, that will really help this channel grow in the future.
Absolutely.
So I think that's it from us, and we're going to pass over to Gai.
Thanks, guys. 2 unexpected things there. A Trump reference and the viewability side of things. So I'll chat to the guys about this. So now I'm going to be joined by James and Flaminia. We went on a ride with Jodi and Clare. They took us down and brought us up again at the end. So let's see what we can give the audience now. So James and Flaminia, first up. So we put out the CTV paper that's been mentioned the first time round, 2017, unbelievably. From both of your point of view, and I might start with you, Flaminia, what's changed in the last few years from a technology point of view? Where have we improved over the last few years?
Hi everybody. So technology have advanced so much in this space since. So I think that yes, there's still room to improve user experience, but we have improved most major challenges with connected TV limitations since. So enhanced service and SSP technology, particularly Telaria, help us solving back-to-back experiences and frequency management across server-side and session supply a lot more than what it used to be. We now have the ability to frequency cap across connected TV by leveraging SSPs or publisher IDs. We have way more sophisticated targeting capabilities by being able to overlay publisher log level data. And today, most DSPs and ad servers support segment targeting in CTV via device IDs, user IDs, and household IPs. And then we can leverage far better sophistication with cross-device targeting and addressability, which is, I'd say, made possible by proprietary or DSP built-in household device graphs, such as the Trade Desk one, for example. And then for me particularly, which is something that we're being able to do recently, reporting on context signals will also make a huge difference in the insight we can provide back to brands at the back of their connected TV execution, which is huge. So I'd say, although there is definitely room for doing a better job as an industry, particularly in collaborating to provide to an extent, a blanket approach across cross-click measurement, which isn't there yet. But if you look back at where we were at in 2017, we've done a lot in this space. So it's definitely a huge opportunity for brands to advertise within CTV.
Daisy, what do you think?
So I agree. I mean, it'd be silly to pretend that we didn't have work still to do. But, you know, I'm generally a glass half full kind of guy. And, you know, if we look at how far we've come over the course of the last 3 years, like, you know, firstly, from an audience perspective, CTV and BVOD more broadly is increasingly becoming mainstream. You know, you look at the numbers that Nat just ran through a moment ago to see 22% year-on-year growth. And I think we're probably still undercooking it a little bit just because of sort of co-viewing and those sorts of things that that are a little bit more difficult to measure. So I think CTV and BVOD more broadly are increasingly becoming mainstream. I look at things as, you know, again, as how far we've come. And I think the user experience 4 years ago, we're light years ahead of where we were before. You know, you talk about things like frequency capping, and that's something that's a very real challenge and has been. And it's something that we've spent an enormous amount of work on at the Trade Desk to try and help to resolve. So, you know, we're launching tools, things like conditional frequency capping. So rather than just having a campaign frequency cap of, let's say, 3 or 4 or 5, you know, moving it to a lifetime frequency cap plus a daily frequency cap plus an hourly frequency cap plus a, you know, quarter hour. So you can start, rather than, you know, programmatic, which might have paced the campaign purely to deliver on what the ultimate delivery goal was, starting to be more intelligent about the way that we're scheduling creative to deliver a better user experience and to deliver a better brand outcome as well. So I think we've come a hell of a long way. Yes, we've still got more work to do. It's increasingly mainstream, but nobody's kind of sitting on their hands. Everybody's working really collaboratively to try and sort of improve where we are at the moment. So I think it's a really exciting space.
So that user experience that Claire's talking about, we should see some changes over the coming sort of the rest of the year and going forward.
100%. I mean, I think we've already seen enormous improvements to it, and we'll continue to do that. But some of the tools that we're shipping over the coming months will make a really significant step change in some of those challenges that we just heard about.
And presumably the broader range of advertisers in this space is sort of diversifying the inventory, the creative coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the most exciting areas from as an old broadcaster who's come out of like working at one just recently, one of the most exciting things about CTV is the opportunity to introduce a new range of brands into advertising on the biggest screen in the household, the most powerful screen in the household of driving brand outcomes. Because, you know, you go back 10 years ago, you had to have 100 grand, 200 grand, 300 grand to buy an effective schedule on linear TV. You don't need that anymore. You know, you can get into people's living rooms on that big screen with a budget of $5,000 or $10,000, and with the right targeting, actually deliver a really good outcome. So I think CTV is a great opportunity to get a far broader range of advertisers into the living room and communicating with audiences.
Flaminia, we've heard your technical expertise up front. When you're trying to explain this to clients and the opportunity here, sort of Jodi talked through the Publicis approach. Is yours similar or different when you're pitching it into?
So yeah, we wouldn't, like, in terms of describing the opportunities around CTV, I wouldn't go as like that technical, because it's beyond what we can do from a technical standpoint. I think the biggest one, in my opinion, opportunity for brand, which is what we really trying to push with our advertisers and educate on, is to really nail their screen strategy across linear TV and activity on connected TV. So focusing on the two screens across integrated messaging, delivering, measurement, and recording. So that's huge. At MatterKind, we actually have built a solution which allows for brands to maximize unique reach potential on connected TV against a linear execution. And we can already see how this product represents a huge opportunity for brands, particularly the one that really do focus their activity on mainly on television. And then the other main opportunity that we really do speak at length with brand about still remains the fact that with connected TV, we can leverage the best of what the big screen has to offer, like to James' point, with the advanced digital capabilities that we can activate across connected television, which include personalization of messaging, addressability, but also format and creative innovation that we're starting to see a little bit more now, like pausing screen ad formats, interactivity, content integration, and these to a growing unique audience. Like we've just looked at the stats right now, there's 6.3 million of Australians accessing CTV daily, which is huge. So it's really an opportunity massive for brands, which is to an extent still untapped.
And without, I guess, picking out favourites, which you might want to do, are there any examples of local brands doing it really well, apart from Clare, who's obviously nailing it?
Yeah.
Verticals.
Yeah, so there's definitely a few brands that are doing it very well. One of our FMCG brands is leading the charge, I'd say currently. They were really the first in maximizing investment in CTV and understanding the importance of reaching that growing unique audience, even if at first it wasn't fully measurable. And we really, took them on a journey, and currently we've deployed the most sophisticated screen execution with them. So we are running that screen tool that I did mention before with them, which is proving a huge amount of opportunity for them. So digitally as well, the largest investment has been sitting on connected TV for the last 2 years by design, and results have been outstanding. So I definitely would think about that brand in terms of who is doing it really well.
I reckon the most progressive stuff that we see is less about who's doing the best job in CTV and more about who's doing the best job in screen in totality. And I think this is probably going to be the biggest step forward over the next sort of 6 or 12 months, is how we holistically start to stitch together audiences and campaigns across screens. And I know it's something that we've been talking about for a long time, and different agencies have got different approaches to it. And Flams has talked about some of the great work that they're doing, and Jodi talked about how they see CTV as a reach extension for linear. But I think that's the most exciting space, and there's some really practical ways that that we at the Trade Desk are working to try and drive that forward. So one of those is we're about sort of 6 or 8 weeks out from launching a new set of what we call TV planning tools. And we're working with a company called Stanbury, which uses automated content recognition. So they sort of integrate directly into the chipset of smart TVs to record what is being watched at a device level, at a household level. So what ads they're being exposed to, what programming they're watching, all obviously opt-in and privacy compliant, and all of those sorts of things. But what it allows us to do is to understand, take linear exposure data at a campaign level for a brand, and understand if that household has been underexposed or overexposed, and then start to use that information to inform how we're activating and buying our digital media schedule. Because there's no other channel, in my view, that allows you to build rapid reach really quickly in the same way that linear TV does. There's no other channel that has 1 million people that sit down to watch a big tentpole show every night. But when you get to 50 or 60% 1+ reach on TV, it can become really difficult to go and chase those incremental reach points. So what we're trying to do is to say, don't move all of your linear TV out of it onto CTV. Like, there's still absolutely a really important role for that to play. But if you're looking for incremental reach, then what our tools are going to allow people to do is to really effectively go and hunt those audiences that allow them to buy really efficient incremental reach points on top of their linear schedule. So I reckon that's the most exciting part. And it's, as I say, it's something that people have been talking about for the last couple of years, like how are we going to solve that? There's been a lot of talk around VOZ, and we're not, at the trade desk, Stanbury is one partner that we're working with, but in the US, we also work with Nielsen and Inscape and whatnot. So we're not preferring kind of one measurement partner over another. We'd like to create a marketplace where brands can choose which ones that they want to use, but stitching screens together and not viewing CTV in isolation of linear, that's the most exciting thing, I think, in our view.
Yeah, I mean, if you can use a range of data sets in a privacy compliant way, it'll add different angles. Is that the way you're looking at things, Flaminia, as well? Are you using different data sets to inform?
Yeah. We definitely use a number of different data sets. We rely a lot on our audience management platform, which sits on Axiom mostly. But yeah, it's a to James' point, our goal this year is really looking at how we can leverage connected TV alongside linear television and looking at cohesively. So yeah, we're definitely working with the likes of the trade desk and to achieve that.
One difference in this market, and I think it's an important reason that we've got a local connected TV guide, is actually in the type of inventory available. So whenever I'm talking to my counterparts in IAB US or Europe, the range of CTV content providers is a lot broader. You've got some of those sort of smaller, either subscription or, AVOD bundles. Whereas in this market, it's very much BVOD and YouTube focused. Do you both see that changing here? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What's your take on why the Australian market looks quite different?
I can jump in there. Having sort of spent a fair bit of time in the US and living there for a little while, it's important to understand that the US TV market is so fundamentally different to the Australian one. Like, you've got cable, which is, historically been sort of 70 or 80% penetration, and you've got national broadcast, local broadcast, you've got windowing. It's a really, really different market to what we have here, where pay TV is kind of capped out at sort of 30 to 35% penetration in the market. So what's driven a lot of that drive, that rapid kind of acceleration of, what they refer to in the US as cord cutting, is this mass penetration of cable TV, and people are using OTT and BVOD as a substitute to their former sort of cable subscriptions. And so you do have hundreds of niche services over there. You've got anime niche services, you've got Spanish drama, you've got K-pop services that are all sort of $2, $3, $4, $5 a month, and people are rolling together half a dozen of these things. But you've also got services like Hulu, who really is a proper cable substitute, on top of the businesses like Netflix that everybody knows about. I think what we're going to see is a globalization of services. So there's the really high profile ones over in the US, like Disney Plus, which is already launched here. Hayu, which is a sort of reality service, which is launched here, but then there's also, a bunch of other ad-funded services that have launched in Australia that have started in other parts of the world. So things like Tubi and Pluto TV and those sorts of things. And a lot of people don't know this, but ad-funded streaming is actually the fastest growing segment of the market globally. Like, everybody talks about subscription, and of course subscription is huge, but ad-funded streaming is actually the fastest growing segment globally. So I think we're going to see a globalization of services, and a lot of those international services will launch here, and because they can amortize the cost of developing them and the cost of content across multiple regions. So, absolutely, I think that's going to happen, and I think that's a great thing for advertisers, just because it gives a bunch of new sort of contextual environments to advertise in. Things like Crunchyroll is already here, and So I think it's early days, but definitely there's going to be more to come.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that the more AVOD and SVOD services enter this market, it will be great for advertisers, but also for our local publishers, because in my opinion, it will encourage a lot more users to then switch to on-demand consumption of long-form content, which is basically what's happening in the US. So the more consumers are tapping into this content, the more new AVOD platforms are coming in, which is ideally the wave that it should bring to this market too.
Yeah, we'll see a lot more advertisers jumping in and a lot more creative being developed. So it has to be a good thing. So I'm going to throw you both one last question, and then we're going to open back up to the larger group for the myriad of questions that are coming through. And to the audience, there are a lot coming through. We may not get to all of them. Some of them will be answered in the upcoming famous CTV white paper, and we'll look at other ways of answering all the questions. But I love the enthusiasm and the amount of interest in the topic. Both of you have touched on probably some of this before, but if you could sum up over the next 12 months, let's ignore consumption. We're presuming consumption is going to grow. What are you most excited about?
You go. Okay. So I think there will be, like it happened since 2017, there will be a massive amount of change in this space. I would say, and I'm excited about this one, I'm hoping for screens briefing to really become the norm, because it's been helping massively, and it really drives that focus on looking at TV and connected TV together, like we did mention before. Like we did just touched on, I think AVOD and SVOD services entering the market will increase, and it will encourage users to switch to on-demand consumption. Again, investment across connected TV will definitely continue to grow, and this also because particularly when we won't be able to leverage cookies anymore, devices that have always been cookieless will thrive, and connected TV will definitely do. But I think that this growth will also be driven by brands who have started understanding that BVOD cannot be an afterthought anymore, and particularly when planning the TV strategy, and how connected TV consumption is hugely important to building their rich curve, to James' point before. And we've seen a great example of this and the increase of consumption around connected TV during the lockdown, in fact. And then I also expect and hope for new interactive formats and personalization and seamless addressable capability to be widely leveraged over the next 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, I just agree, like, with everything that Flams has just said. You know, like, it's growth. Like, it's audience growth, it's advertiser growth, it's revenue growth, it's new content, new services. You know, as I said before, you know, linear TV is still phenomenally powerful, but we're not going back to linear. Like, you know, audiences are moving in one direction. And we should encourage that, because, you know, I fundamentally believe that if we can solve some of the challenges that we've talked about today, and I really believe that we can, because I've seen the progress that we've already made, and I've seen what's coming from our perspective down the line, and the tools that we're shipping to help to solve them. You know, there is enormous opportunity for us to continue to grow the sector. But singularly, the biggest thing that we can do is to help stitch together linear TV and CTV, or BVOD more broadly, into a single view, because it's critical for brands to be able to understand basic stuff like reach and frequency. Like, how can you communicate effectively with your audience if you're not managing reach and frequency well? And doing that in silos is like a thing of the past. We have to solve them, and I'm really, really excited by the tools that we've got to ship in the next couple of months that will help to deliver on some of that.
Great, thanks guys. We might bring everyone else back in if you guys want to come off. All right, we'll get through a few questions. Let's get rid of the viewability ones first, because I know Jodi wants to talk about it forever.
Really do.
Yeah. I guess the brunt of the questions coming through is why is it still a thing? Why are we still trying to measure viewability for the big screen?
Yeah, and I wish it wasn't. But I think from an agency's perspective, and this is from personal experience, you know, we have a lot of global clients who have a benchmark that includes viewability. And if you don't have that measurement, you cannot use that channel. And I know it sounds stupid, but it is what it is. And in a world where you know, procurement is really tied into media, you know, this is where these targets come from, and we don't have a workaround for that. Sometimes you can get them excluded, but you know, it really does actually hold back our ability to invest in the channel. And I know, like, you know, it's easy for us to all say, well, I mean, you've watched it, you know that it's 100% viewable. That's great, but I mean, actually, that's just anecdotal evidence, and you know that we can't work with that. That's why it's still a thing. It's not actually a thing for me, but it is a thing for my clients.
Okay, if it's a thing for your clients, it's a thing, right?
Yeah.
CPMs, question coming through in terms of, I guess, value of screens and different inventory across screens. I guess I'll maybe Flaminia, if you want to take this one initially, from a value point of view for your clients, do you think about different screens and different values in terms of cost?
Yeah, I definitely, I do. Although the type of screens and the value, it's quite tricky, because it really, I think a lot depends on user consumption and how user access screens. Like, for example, during commuting hours, your mobile screen will be much more valuable than a connected TV screen, for example, which is consumed very similarly to linear television. So it really, how you strategize is extremely important. It's not so much a CPM standpoint. From a CPM standpoint, I think what's really relevant to look at is content, and then screens, definitely. But I would look more at content than device particularly.
Jodi, I don't know if you wanted to jump in with anything there.
Yes,
or...
I do. Look, I mean, for me, it's kind of a supply and demand issue, right? Right now, if you think about BVOD, in like particularly, it is still quite small. So you can get away with it being a lot more expensive than your TV CPMs. But, you know, once we hit that sort of threshold, you know, media buyers are definitely going to be looking for it to be the same price as television, because it delivers the same thing. So for now, I mean, it makes sense to me from a trading perspective that things cost different prices, because there is a different level of supply and demand. And if you think about mobile, you know, the supply is huge and the demand is less so. So that's why it's much cheaper than, say, BVOD desktop. But yeah, I mean, at the moment it makes total sense, and I don't think anyone really has an issue with it. I think once these things expand further and further, you know, as media buyers do, we will expect them to become cheaper.
Can I just jump in on this one? I just think like it's going to be interesting. And Jodi, you're referring to the broadcast linear CPM. I'm very hopeful that that conversation actually may not happen ever. Yes, the growth is absolutely massive, but I think we'll actually shift from where we're at right now, where we're actually starting to compare the two, to a world where, you know, the addressability, but also the sophistication, being able to find your clients, if you have a CRM as a client on CTV, but also potentially measure the impact directly in terms of attribution with the exposition that happens on CTV. It will be a different world, right? Like right now we're looking at it like apple for apple, but it will be different. And as soon as we're going to be able to talk about outcome-based marketing and looking at the impact and the ROI, I think that CPM conversation will probably, hopefully, completely different.
I mean, that's really hopeful. I would say that, look, Voz is coming into the market, right? And when you know, one day, and when that happens, you know, basically what you've done is say, this is television and this is the measurement. And the minute you do that, TV buyers are going to have a CPM conversation with you. So, you know, from a digital perspective, absolutely what you're saying is 100% true. And I think you can have those conversations with people who are actually from the digital side. From the television side, you will never get rid of your CPMs.
Sounds like Claire's.
I like your positivity.
Sounds like Claire just wants some good solid research on what's happening, what's working, and user experience, and maybe that can feed into the value.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. This is stuff that we don't we leave to our agencies. But yeah, if you could find the golden bullet or silver bullet of this channel will drive us business much better than this other channel for a non-CRM client, which we aren't, then we'd look at what it's worth to pay for. But no one's really found that yet. So we still want to drive, return on investment and value, because again, we have to explain and justify why we're spending what we're spending to people who are not in marketing or advertising, or they just want to see results.
Yeah, so I think from a Trade Desk perspective, I couldn't agree with you more. Like we're trying to build out a measurement marketplace like within our platform that allows brands to connect their activity regardless of channel to whatever sort of business metrics that a brand wants to tie it to, whether that's a conversion through to purchase, which we can do in some ways, whether it's an increase in footfall or increase in brand uplift. But we're about presenting all of the available measurement opportunities to buyers in a single interface to be able to track through their campaign data through to measurable business outcomes. So the more we can measure whatever outcome that a brand is trying to achieve, will make that transition of dollars a lot easier, as Claire is saying, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, last one, and I'm a little bit wary of this one because it could turn into an ad for at least one person, but I will manage that accordingly. But it's a nice one to end on. It's on the content, because we've talked a lot about infrastructure and what content, and Jono, I can feel you frothing, what content is really, I guess, working on CTV. If you want to take that first, but then I might turn to either Flam or Jodi in terms of that broader, what's happening in the broader market as well.
Well, first we're talking about CTV, so I've been frothing for an hour, guys, just then. But I guess, yeah, from a content perspective, I guess it depends, and I'm not going to talk about just 7, but it depends on the commissioning strategy, right? Like whether you consider CTV the home for catching up on the content that you missed on the big screen on linear or live streaming, or if you're also trying to add, as we have, a video on demand capability with shows that won't actually come up on linear. At the moment, we have 70%, and here we go, of the catalog that is, digital only, and we continue to invest in that. But also there's a big dimension around like what content is being viewed. The content is in the living room, right? So if you think about what is going to be the most appealing content for the whole family for co-viewing, that does have an impact in terms of like how we're looking at what to buy from external companies or produce ourselves. And then there's the whole idea of like additional live stream content, for example, that we may not afford to actually place on the schedule on linear, that you can actually place on digital, such as smaller leagues from a sports perspective and things like that. Was it too salesy?
No, it's perfect.
Great.
Flaminia, for you, from the, I guess, BVOD and the broader market, is there any sort of particular content genres that are unexpected or larger than sort of common?
I mean, for the moment, is everything you would expect. We do run a lot across BVOD within on-demand and live. I would say that live consume content on CTV is definitely a lot more than what you would expect, because people just think about BVOD, just think about catch-up TV. There's actually a lot of content which is consumed, so that one is probably something that you wouldn't necessarily expect. And then we are seeing some AVOD platforms consumption growing as well, particularly looking at Tubi, for example. There is some growing interest there as well.
Perfect. Thank you all for that wonderful conversation. There's a lot more to be said, and I'm sure we'll come back and maybe do a part 2 at some point. The recording of this will be sent around to everyone who registered, along with the much awaited and anticipated white paper, which will come out next week. So look for your inboxes for that notification. Look, this market, Nat went through the stats, but a $1.6 billion video market that is shifting quite heavily to the big screen. So we need to spend a lot of time, a lot of energy, both on the technical, the content, the creative side of things, to make sure it really provides the right opportunities for consumers and for marketers. So thank you for all joining us today.